We are logged in. So guys, you know what happens, Praveen and Arjun, when you create virtual server, right? So you have so many virtual servers in front of you. You would always create virtual servers while deploying a new service in your environment, right? So, I mean, whenever I say you have to deploy a new service, right? So that means that you have to create a virtual server, right? So you can deploy the websites using virtual servers only. So when you create a virtual server, right? So ideally for load balancing purposes, for the purpose of load balancing, you would always have type of standard virtual server, right? This is standard type of virtual server. I mean, you would always use that. Does that make sense to all of you? That in most cases, for the purpose of load balancing, we will be using a standard type of virtual server.
Yes.
This is what we have done so far, right? But if you look at configuration section, right, you would see a lot of profiles are there. Protocol profile, HTTP profile, FTP profile, RDSP profile, stream profile, XML profile, MQT profile, SSL profile, authentication profile, many more. There's a huge list of profiles. And you will be using these profiles based on your requirements, right? So we have various profiles that you would require to attach them to your virtual server. And based on your requirements, you will be selecting, hey, this is the profile. Okay, I'll attach it to my virtual server. Okay, I have this another profile, so I'll attach it to my virtual server. And so, I mean, like that. Okay. So now let's come back to the profile concept. What do you mean by profile? I hope, Praveen, you are working somewhere.
Yeah, I'm working Godrej.
So Godrej real estates or what?
No, they have launched a new vertical naming Godrej Housing Finance.
Okay, perfect. So since you are working somewhere, right, you must be knowing your own profile. What is your profile?
So my profile is basically the network security that I'm handling. So it has the profile which contains the security part as well as the network part. That is for the DC environment, DR environment, and on the cloud as well. And regarding the security part, so that includes the firewall, load balancers, SIM tool, and all.
Right, perfect. Now this statement will help you all, right? It will help you all to understand the meaning of profile. So basically, when you join a company, right, you are always assigned with a profile. Okay, you are always assigned a profile, and that profile defines your roles and responsibilities, right? So, like you said, you have a network security engineering profile, and this profile gives you, like it has a set of roles and responsibilities. I mean, that profile has a set of roles and responsibilities, like you are responsible to work over firewalls, you are responsible to perform troubleshooting, you are responsible to manage routers, switches, access point, WLCs, maybe ICE, the VPN concentrators, right? Like that. That's an example, right? Now, based on that role and responsibility, you would be performing, right? So you are an entity, like you are a virtual server. Now profile is attached to you. Now you know that what is the roles and responsibilities of that profile. And based on that only you will perform. You will never go beyond that. Do you understand that? So the behavior of yourself, Parveen, let's say today your profile is network security engineer. Tomorrow you have some different profile, then you would have some different roles and responsibilities. Do you agree with this statement?
Yes, correct.
So in similar way, you can modify the behavior of virtual server by applying profiles, by modifying profiles. You get my point?
Yes.
Like we can modify your behavior, right, Praveen, by changing your profile. In similar way, we can modify the behavior of this virtual server by modifying, by applying the profiles here. Does that make sense to all of you?
Yes.
Perfect. Now, let's go back to the documentation and I'll be using that. Profiles. So profile determines that how virtual server traffic is gonna process your data onto big IP. Okay. So the client is gonna hit the virtual server, and then virtual server is gonna, is gonna process that data and will be responsible to communicate with your real servers as well, right? So there are so many things like SSL offloading, then of course, then TCP optimization, right? The HTTP optimization, or you would say like HTTP profile is also there, HTTP compression, right? And many more. So first, we will talk about the profile concepts, the profile dependencies, the profile types, and finally we will start with the configuring profile. So if I talk about the profile concepts, right? So as I said, SSL decryption. Remember, we did it. We configured the SSL decryption,
Yes.
right? We applied SSL profile for same. So basically, we modified the behavior of our virtual server by applying the SSL profile. Remember, because if you do not apply the SSL profile to your virtual server, will it be possible for your virtual server to perform SSL decryption? Of course,
No.
no. Right? So, I mean, even you can force your virtual server to perform compression, the HTTP compression, right? That is possible. That can be done using profiles. Then you also have some sort of, the persistence profile. What do you have? The persistence profile. Right? So if we talk about the persistence profile, then, like to persist your connections, you will be using those profiles. Okay. So apply behavior to many virtual servers. So point is, if you create one profile, now you can get it applied to multiple virtual servers, to many virtual servers onto your big IP. So it's not necessary like you created one profile, you attached that to one virtual server. Now you have another virtual server, so you would require now to create another profile. No. Create one profile and then you can attach it to the multiple virtual servers at same time, simultaneously. Right?
Sir, is there any use case scenario when we have to use the same profile to multiple virtual servers? I mean, we can get my work done with a single virtual server.
Oh, wow, Rahul,
This,
excellent question. Huh? Looks like you are reading so many things about this. Hey, Rahul, this is seriously. Let's say you have multiple websites deployed, hosted, right? So would not you want to secure each and every host using SSL?
okay, okay.
You get my point?
In case of multiple, yeah, multiple application or
Of course.
okay.
So for each application, you can have a separate virtual server, right? And you will have to have that. All right, guys. So that's that piece. Thereafter, so persistence. You can take a look at the persistence example. So meaning of persistence is to to stick your user to a same server, right? To force your user to have access data to have access of data from the same server over and over, right? So let's say client A came into the big IP and big IP selected server one. So the, you know, like first request came from the end user, so it was redirected by big IP to the server one. So now, if it is also receiving more and more requests from the same client, then it will send all those requests to the same server only. Like it's kind of stickness that it is following or it is performing by using persistence. Right? No, no. It's not for DOS protection. No, it's not. The advantage of this feature is where you have, like dynamic website. For example, let's say I have my iMerita website, right? And we have a link for the payment as well. And my payment gateways are installed or are configured on these real servers. You get my point? Now you are trying to make the payment. So client clicked on that payment link, was redirected to some another page, thereafter asked for card details, PIN and everything. You clicked OK, then you will get an OTP. So the whole point is that all of the transactions should happen with the same server. Because if you are going to the next available server, then next available server is not expecting any OTP from you. You get my point? Only the previous server was expecting the OTP from you. I mean, the initial server to whom you contacted before for making payment. So the payment gateway is the best example for enabling the persistence. That is something different. That is something different. Remember that iMerita server doesn't need to communicate with the bank server. You know how it happens? You will get a link over the iMerita's website. Once you click on that link, now you are redirected to a different website that is from the bank maybe. Okay? So that link is provided by the bank to the organization. So once you make the payment on that link, that will be reflected into iMerita's account, and that is again opened in the bank in the branch itself, right? Of course. I mean, it doesn't happen at all, right? Yes, bank to bank communication is there, right? If you are transferring money, then bank to bank communication is there. Yeah, that's something happens. But that's a pretty secure connectivity that they have between each other, right? So point is that if you are making some transactions, then make sure that each and every request is landed or is landing on a same server, right, sir? I mean, your big IP should not perform like kind of load sharing that it was doing before, right? Now, this persistence can be done based on the IP address of the user, right? Based on cookies, like cookies plays a vital role in case, mainly in case of websites, right? That's how it works. So SSL termination, it is also one of the example. We used SSL profile, and then SSL connection was terminating onto big IP. So the connection was secured, encrypted between end user and the big IP, and then big IP was communicating with the real servers in plain text format. So that was also an example of the profile, right? So you utilized the SSL profile over here for the client side, not for the server side. But profile also gives you an opportunity, profile also gives you a flexibility to enable encryption or to enable SSL between big IP and real servers also, right? But yes, this is essential to have security between client and big IP. That connection must be a secure connection. However, rest is optional. Like whether you want to enable encryption between big IP and real servers, if or not. In most cases, it is not necessary. But in banking sector, ideally it is recommended to have encryption enabled between client and big IP, and thereafter between big IP and real servers. So SSL profile will be in used, or it will be utilized in that condition. Am I audible to all of you?
Yes.
Yes, sir.
Thereafter, FTP. So if you have FTP servers, and now you know very well that the behavior of the FTP, right? The behavior of FTP is quite different than HTTP. And you also must be aware with the functionality of the FTP. You know, if you remember, FTP has two different port numbers. One is used for the control connection and one is used for data. Like port number 21 is utilized for the purpose of control connection, and port number 20 is utilized for the data connection. And I believe that each one of you is aware with that, right? So in that condition, you know, I mean, like in case of FTP, right? FTP, the control, like if I talk about the active FTP, because there are different modes, right? Active and then passive, right? So in active FTP, client initiates the control connection, but thereafter, real server will initiate the data connection. So will this big IP, will this F5 allow that connection? How will it perform in that way? So it is mandatory for, I mean, it is mandatory for us to tell big IP, hey, big IP, you have to process the FTP data in this manner. Or maybe sometimes you will have to enable, like you want to enable passive mode FTP. Then how can you enable the passive mode FTP? So that can be done using FTP profile. So by default, your big IP will not work or will not allow the FTP connection to be established. By default, it will not allow. So in case if you want to deploy the FTP services onto your big IP, make sure that you create a FTP profile and then you associate it with your respective virtual server. So I hope you remember that how to create the virtual server for FTP, right? Because while creating virtual server, you have to tell that, hey, you are a virtual server and you're going to listen for the FTP traffic. And thereafter, you will have to make sure that you have attached FTP profile to that specific virtual server. Okay. So, I mean, by default, my big IP, by default, my virtual server is not going to allow the FTP data unless you apply FTP profile. Thereafter, profile dependencies. Like there are certain profiles such as cookie. So cookie, it must have HTTP profile. If HTTP profile is not enabled, you cannot get cookies profile enabled. So cookie is depending over HTTP, right? Now HTTP profile has dependency over TCP. So if TCP profile is not there, let's say there was a UDP profile, and now you are trying to enable HTTP profile, you cannot do that because you know that HTTP will always utilize TCP at transport layer. And similarly, cookies can be utilized along with HTTP only. I hope that you heard about the cookies before as well, and that, you know, so cookies are mainly applicable only for your websites, only for your web pages. Does that make sense to all of you?
Yes.
Yes, sir.
Now, there are some there are certain profiles which cannot be coexist on a same virtual server. Like you want to enable FTP and HTTP profile on a same virtual server. No, it's not possible. So on a single virtual server, it is not possible for you to enable FTP and HTTP profile both. No, it's not possible. Similarly, it goes with the TCP and UDP. So you cannot enable TCP profile and UDP profile at same time on a common virtual server. This is not something really possible. So there are some dependencies, like cookie has dependency over HTTP, HTTP has dependency over TCP. And some of the profiles that cannot coexist, like HTTP cannot exist with FTP, cannot coexist with FTP. TCP cannot coexist with UDP. Is that clear to all of you? Profile types, like services, like which are mainly layer 7 oriented, right? Which are mainly layer 7 oriented. So like HTTP profile, FTP profile, right? And thereafter you have LDAP profile, you have DNS profile, and many more. There's a huge list of profiles that those are available at layer 7. All of them are layer 7 oriented. Then you have persistence profile as well, which is also known as session oriented, because uh, you are trying to keep sessions from a same user machine on a same server, right? So that's why this persistence profile is also known as session type of or session oriented profile, right? So protocol profiles like TCP profile, UDP profiles, so those are layer 4 oriented, right? SSL is encryption oriented. So in case if you want to achieve encryption, then you will have to use the SSL profile. Thereafter, it's authentication, which is a security oriented profile, which is a security oriented profile, right? Thereafter, there are some other profiles as well, which includes like one connect and so forth, right? So there are so many profiles available. There's a huge list, and even let me tell you, I'll be quite straightforward with all of you. It's not that I have utilized each and every profile in my experience, in my past experience, right? It's not in that way. So whatever is available, it's not like you will always need them in your production environment. No, there are some well-known profiles. There are some profiles which are mostly used in all types of networks. So we will cover all of them. Okay. So now you have some default profiles available, right? You have some default profiles available. Either you can utilize them, and in case if you want to create the custom profile, again, it's up to you. If you want to use custom profile, use them. However, you have some default profiles pre-configured, right? Pre-created onto your big IP. And F5 has created those profiles based on the best practices. Just get me one sec, please, guys. Get me one. Okay, guys, I'm back. I'm so sorry. So now let me show you that how you can browse all those profiles, right? So if you are logged on onto Box, right? So onto Box itself, if you go to LTM, local traffic, and then if you go to profiles, then you have all those options like service. So as I mentioned before, that services profile are layer 7 oriented. So you will all get layer 7 protocols like HTTP, DNS, DSCP, FTP, TFTP, Radius, SIP, SMTP. All of them are layer 7 protocols, right? So service profiles are layer 7 oriented profiles. Thereafter, you have persistence profile, which is a session oriented profile. So we can use multiple components or multiple parameters to perform persistence, right? Thereafter, there's a protocol profile that you could look for, like FastL4. I mean, mainly it's TCP and UDP. Mainly it's TCP and UDP. Thereafter, SSL is there for encryption purposes. Authentication is also there, but we are not going to enable the authentication here, but I'll definitely explain you that how does this profile work. Other is like OneConnect, and then like you have statistics profile as well, like that. So you have all these other profiles as well, right? So these all are the profiles that you have available on your LTM box. Mainly we will be focusing over TCP profile, UDP profile, HTTP profile, SSL profile, FTP profile, persistence profile. So we will be focusing on all these profiles. As I said before, it's not like we are going to cover each and every profile, but yes, we will cover all of the profiles which are commonly used in production environment. Okay. So these all profiles are there, but thereafter, like as I said, that they have also created some, I mean, you have predefined profiles. Like if you go to persistence profile, you have cookie profile, you have destination address profile, you have hash profile, host profile, MSRDP profile, SIP info profile, source address profile, SSL profile, universal profile under persistence. Now you could utilize them while creating the virtual server, right? So if you click on create, thereafter you can see that you have all those options available over here, right? So you can create the persistence profile over there, and then you could call them over here. Maybe cookie, destination address, whatsoever you have, right? So create profile under profile section, and then get them attached onto your virtual server. So based on your profile, like the parameters you have defined inside the profile, based on those parameters, your virtual server will perform, or you will change the process of virtual server. That clear to all of you?
Yes, sir.
All right. So let's go back to the profile now. So even if I start with the TCP itself, right? So if you go to the protocol profile and then TCP profile, you have some predefined TCP profiles. You can see all of them, like all, show all. So you have all of them. So, F5 recommends you to utilize your, like, it is always recommended to use TCP lane optimized for lane side and TCP WAN optimized for WAN side. Okay. So you have TCP WAN optimized, you have TCP lane optimized. So that's something which is recommended by F5 to use in our production environment. So you know very well that while creating virtual servers and while associating, I mean, if you are creating kind of TCP, you are creating virtual server for the TCP, then you have profiles there, like for the client and for the servers. So this is for server side and this is for client side. By default, whatever you apply for the clients will be applicable for servers as well. You can see use client profile. However, you should have it in this way. Like for clients, say TCP WAN optimized. For lane side, for servers, say TCP lane optimized. So you must have TCP lane optimized in this way. So that's how you should create, or you should utilize, you should use the TCP profiles. So does that make sense to all of you? Any questions so far?
No, sir.
Okay. All right. Great. So now let's go back to the profiles and protocol profile particularly, and then TCP. And thereafter, let's create one. In case if you want to create a custom one, then create that profile. So first you will have to assign some name. Let's say test TCP profile. Okay. Like this. Parent profile, you have to pick any one, right? So what will it do once, I mean, as soon as you pick this parent profile, it will copy those parameters right away, right? So you picked up like TCP, but in case if you wanted to create a test TCP profile for your WAN side, then F5 TCP WAN. You could select that, then it will copy all the parameters from that profile only, or maybe WAN optimized. So these all are the timers that you could modify, like close wait, fin wait. Ideal timeout is really important. So what we do, especially for the client side, and I mean for the server side as well, we usually reduce this ideal timeout to avoid DDoS attack, to reduce the possibility of DDoS attack, right? So we shall reduce the ideal timeout, because if ideal timeout is higher, right? Let's say attacker established a connection, then that connection will remain up for another 300 seconds, right? But in case if attacker is creating more and more connections, like it might exhaust the connection table over the big IP. So better to reduce this ideal timeout. So let's say we configure it 60 seconds, which is 1 minute, which is sufficient. So thereafter, what will happen? And the user establish the connection. After 1 minute, it will get deleted. It will get removed automatically in case if there was no activity. Okay. The keep alive interval is by default like 1800 seconds, but again, you can change that. The minimum RTO, retransmission timeout, is 1000 milliseconds, which is 1 second, right? That's the minimum RTO. So the retransmission can be done after 1 second only, not before that. Okay. Reset on timeout. So if the connection was timed out, then the connection should be resetted, right? So that's what you defined there. Thereafter, you can also change the buffer, the memory management for the TCP, right? Thereafter, you can also, I mean, if you look at the data transfer, this section, data transfer section, you can see what is the initial receive window size. That's 3 MSS unit. So it's not in bytes, it's in terms of number of segments. What is your default MSS, maximum segment size? That's 1460. Nagle algorithm is by default enabled, right? TTL is proxied, right? For V4, it supports up to 255, and for V6, it supports 64. You can change them in case if needed. Thereafter, you can see here, like loss detection and recovery. If packet was lost, then how you can recover that? So initial retransmission timeout based multiplier for SYN retransmission. Thereafter, You can also set the maximum segment retransmissions. So it's not like TCP will always be doing the retransmissions for a single packet for forever. No, there is a maximum limit as well for doing retransmissions, which is by default 8 that you can modify. And same goes with SYN retransmissions. Like you sent the SYN packet, there was no, no SYNAC was received, then again it will send SYN. No SYNAC was received, again it will send SYN. SYNAC, no SYNAC was received. Then it will reset the entire TCP process, and thereafter it will reinitialize that. Selective acknowledgement is enabled, but selective negative acknowledgement is not enabled, right? So in case if somebody asks you, like the developer of TCP asks you to enable the selective negative acknowledgement, then go ahead and get this enabled, right? So that's why the custom profiles are also available. Okay, so that's what you could perform within the TCP profile. The one more good feature that you have onto your big IP is, like if you click on help and thereafter you have opened up this profile, you are trying to configure it and you don't understand the meaning of any one of the field, right? Then you can go to left side and then you can scroll down and you can read about anything which you don't understand here, like TTL, right? So it's TTL and then it has all the available options, right? And then their meaning, okay? So explanation is also there under help. So that's how you could create the custom TCP profile. We will be creating, but not today, right? I'm just giving you an introduction of the profiles. Thereafter, you could also go for the, under protocol itself, you could also go for the UDP. So you can see that you have some predefined UDP profiles, right? You have a dedicated UDP profile for the GTM, but we are not learning here GTM, right? We are configuring LTM. So if you have an application that you want to deploy onto your big IP and that uses UDP at transport layer, right? So create that. So now you can assign some, you can assign those names. Okay, you can assign those names. Any questions, sir? All right. So now you can see the parent profile is UDP, but in case if you want to modify any one of the available option, like the ideal timeout for UDP is 60 seconds, you can change that, right? The buffer bytes, maximum buffer bytes, you can see all those options, right? So you can also change those. Ideally, you don't have to change anything within the UDP profile, but yeah, you will have to assign the UDP profile if you want to deploy the UDP based application. So you should, you can create the existing UDP profile over here in this way. Let me show you. So for example, if you wanted to deploy a service which uses UDP, so for example, it was TFTP, right? So it uses UDP, right? Or TCP. I think it uses UDP, right? So then it should use UDP like this, and then UDP profile it is asking for, right? So by default, it's UDP. So In case if you have an application that you are deploying over your big IP and that uses UDP, this is how you will get the UDP profile attached with your virtual server. Thereafter, you know, let me go back. All right. So as I mentioned before, that creating profile is not a big deal, right? So virtual server, like you have the, like TCP profile, UDP profile, those are um, your protocol profiles. You can go ahead, you can create the profiles here, right? And then you can also customize your profile as per your requirement. So here they are talking about the persistence profile that I'll discuss later on. So like they are doing persistence based on the source IP address. So if big IP is getting requests coming from the same source IP, then it will redirect all those machines to the same server only, right? And thereafter they have cookie persistence as well. So in case of cookie persistence, you will be using the cookies to perform persistence. So guys, today I'm just giving you an introduction about the profiles, okay? So if you are using cookie in case of HTTP, I hope that you remember or maybe you have heard that web pages, I mean HTTP can have the cookies part of its HTTP response and request methods. Like if it is a HTTP request, it can have cookie inside that. If it is a HTTP response, again it can have a cookie inside that. So you can also use the cookie persistence to persist your connections, right? Thereafter, so cookie and thereafter, member node state lab service down. Just get me one sec. I think somebody is at door. Get me one second. All right, guys, I'm back. So, service down actions are also there. Like in case if your service goes down, then what should be an action, right? In case if you are configuring the profile, right? So, I mean, if you are like once you have configured the profile, thereafter, like profile is completed, right? So I'll perform these practicals in front of you. We have labs and we will perform all those things by ourselves, right, guys? Thereafter, they are also talking about the member states, right? So you can enable the members, you can disable them, right? Or maybe you can put them forcefully in offline state, right? So basically, you should be aware that in case if you disable something, then what can happen? And if you forcefully disable something, right, then what can happen? So if you are disabling, right, if you are disabling something, right, so in that condition, um, you know, if you have disabled a pool member, let's say, right, you are inside a pool and that pool is attached to some virtual server, and then you went to the members and you disabled, you know, you disabled one of the pool members, right? So if you disabled one of the pool member, thereafter, um, thereafter, that pool member will be excluded from the load balancing. So in case if new connections are coming in, like new users are hitting your virtual server, then virtual server will hand off to the pool member and then, I mean, to the pool, and then pool will not include that member during load balancing. Like pool will not consider that member to be available, right? However, if there are some existing active connections, existing will keep doing work, right? If there are existing active connections, will keep doing work, and also if there, I mean, if we had some persistent connections, right? If we had some persistent, like we already enabled the persistence, right? So Big IP knows if this is the source IP, then I should send it to I should send it to this server, right? So it will also allow that and disabled state. But in case if you put some server forcefully into offline state, then only active connections will be allowed. No new connection, nothing related to persistence, nothing. Okay. So that's the major difference between putting your pool member into offline state, or maybe putting your pool member into disabled state, right? If it is enabled, yes. If it is, if it is enabled, and if the status of the pool member is green circle, which means it's all good, right? Now under pool itself, you have this option that what if the service goes down, right? So you have all these options available, right? Like reject, none, drop, reselect, like that. Okay. And even if you go to the pool, let's say you had a pool, right? And then if you go to the advanced settings, then you have this option like action on service down. It's none. You could say reject, maybe drop, maybe reselect. So you could select all those options over here. So the meaning of, like, if you say, hey, if service is down, what's going to happen then? If one member has stopped providing services, right? So by default, it's not going to do anything. But in case if service is down and you want to reject if you want to reject the connection, you can go ahead and reject that. If you want to drop that connection, you can also drop that, right? In case if you want to reselect the pool member, you can also reselect that. So it's up to you that how do you want to configure that. Okay. Thereafter, processing SSL traffic. We have performed this practical before, but we never discussed that how it is processing. And this is what we did, right? We performed SSL offloading. We performed SSL offloading. So if you talk about the SSL offloading, which means that the data that's going from client to big IP and big IP to clients, like vice versa, like the connection between clients and the big IP will be 100% secure and the data will be encrypted, right? But between big IP and the real servers, the traffic will be decrypted and it will get exchanged in plain text format. Is that clear? So we will be learning that how to configure those profiles, right? So like we will be configuring that SSL profile and then we will be seeing that how traffic is being encrypted. However, we have already seen that, but it's still, I'll show you, right? Now you can also see the SSL acceleration. So the transactions per second, that depends that which platform you are actually utilizing. Okay, so you can see that Viprion series of chassis are supporting up to 200,000 transactions per second, and those are SSL transactions. Okay, so that's something that how to configure that, but that's not something that I'm going to perform now. Archive, we have done that. NAT is already completed, SNAT is already completed, AutoMap is already completed. High availability that I'll cover later on. Actually, there is one more chapter related to your profiles. I want to go for that chapter. Wait a moment. Probably Foxit Reader has stopped responding. So Parveen and Arjun, have I shared some official cert guides with you, or I have not shared anything with you guys yet?
No, I don't think so.
Arjun, have I shared? Yeah, this is, I mean, that's what I'm, okay, that was only one-on-one, right? 101, nothing more. Let me share 301 and, you know, wait guys. So, let me open up my Gmail. Let me send you all those documents that you are needed, right? Send. I think Rahul, I sent you over, right?
Yes, sir. I have 101.
Yes. You have everything actually. These all guides. 101, then, you know, like all of the guides. So let me share this guide with you now. Give me your email IDs, please, Praveen and Arjun. Arjun, I think I have shared it with you. Yeah, it's with you. Praveen, can you please share your email ID?
I just shared your email.
Yeah, ping me in chat room.
Yeah, I just did.
Conway. All right. So as I said, like we have kind of HTTP compression profiles as well, which can help you out to compress your HTTP based data, right? And that's something that practically we will perform, that how to compress your HTTP based data using either gzip or deflate. So you can use any one of the algorithm to perform HTTP compression. We can also perform the HTTP caching, so that is also possible, right? So we will also do that. The authentication profile is also there, right? So if there was a valid authentication, allow it. If it was an invalid authentication, then disallow that. And the authentication can be done using LDAP, the radius, TACX, right? Or SSL certificate using LDAP or OCSP. So that is also possible. So optimization technologies. So to optimize the performance, right? Whether it is a TCP performance or it's a HTTP performance, then these all are the technologies that you should utilize to perform optimization. So जैसे इसमें है SSL offloading, right? So you should perform SSL offloading to perform optimization. Right? HTTP compression is also there, so that is also helpful to perform HTTP optimization, right? Then one connect profile is also there, right? So which will also help you out to perform sort of optimization. That TCP Express profile, like you can change the TCP client side profile, which is also known as TCP Express, right? So you should use that to perform optimization. So you can see that between real servers and the big IP, the traffic is being sent in an unencrypted way, uncompressed, right? In case of one connect, you are using, you are reusing the connections, server side connections. So you don't have to create like a separate connection for each client, right? So that's how you can utilize all these technologies for the purpose of optimization. We will be doing that, and that at that time only you will be able to understand that. Okay. So full proxy, when you say full proxy, it's a client, big IP, and the server, right? So you would always have a separate connection table between client and big IP, and thereafter between big IP and the server. So it will work as a full proxy in a full proxy architecture then. Like client will send a request to the big IP, and even big IP will be doing everything like SSL decryption, like it will perform TCP connection, then it will perform SSL decryption, encryption, then HTTP compression, that will be done by big IP, right? So your big IP is working as a proxy. You can see that, and it's a reverse proxy since you are putting it right before your real server. So we will be doing those labs like how to enable HTTP compression, or maybe how to enable HTTP cache, right? Like that. So that's something that we will be doing practically. So today I'll give you one example of persistence. To do so, what I will do, let me turn on my client machine, and also let me turn on my lab. That's my F5 lab. So you will understand that how, will it work in case if we enable the persistence. And we will see that how many different ways we can utilize, we can leverage to enable the persistence. We can also see the impact, the effect of enabling the persistence. Okay. So I hope that you have understood the meaning of persistence. So the meaning of persistence is the stickiness. So if you want to force your end users to be stick to it, to be stick with a specific server, then you will be using persistence. Right? So your lab is up and running now. I shall go back to my virtual server. It's all working fine. And thereafter, let me go back to my client machine. So my client machine shall have access to the site that we have deployed in past. It's up now, right? We can try to have access to our website, which is 5.5.5. So everything was in place, right? We shall have access to the secure website. I mean, we have deployed this website securely onto our big IP. So we shall have access to it using HTTPS. It says your connection is not private, all right, because I know that it was a self-signed certificate, right? Yep. So you can see that it's a secure website using it. I mean, you are accessing it using HTTPS. So that's good news for us, right? So we have access to it. So every time when I'm accessing from the same client machine. So I access it from server 1. Then, if I refresh it, maybe I'll access it from server 3. You get my point? Like this. So every time you are accessing the same website, you are a same client and you are accessing the same website, but every time you are accessing this website from the different server, right? So what I want to enable, I want to enable persistence using cookies. So if I want to enable persistence, or maybe I can do it based on source IP address. So let's do it first based on source IP address. Okay, based on source IP address. So what I will do, I'll go to my big IP. I'll go to profiles and then persistence profile, and then I'll create one like test persistence profile. Okay, type is going to be source IP, source address affinity, which means I'll be using source IP address. Okay. I'll come on that point. I'll come on that point, right? I'll cover that cookies, but first let's go for the source IP address. Now, I am creating it using source IP address. We can also customize it based on requirement. Like prefix length is by default none, but you could specify /32 for IPv4. Now you could ask me that what is the meaning by /32? Why we have configured it /32? You know, the meaning of /32 is that hey, for example, you know, there's the end user machine, and there could be multiple, right? Connected to a switch, to a gateway, then ISP, then big IP, and then real servers, right? If this user is coming in, hitting this big IP, I'm using source IP, so it will check the source IP address here. It will create a persistence table locally here, big IP, that hey, for this source IP, I assigned this pool member. Let's say it was a pool member 1 for this source IP address. Maybe source IP address was like 11.1.1 like that. Okay, that was the public IP address because netting is done by this router, right? So if I have taken /32, which means if the same IP address comes back, then I'll be using the same member. If I say /24, which means if first 24 bits matches, then I'll be sending that user to the same server. You get my point? So you can also put your mask length, the prefix length, that how many bits you want to match. So I said /32, which means I'm going to match all 32 bits, right? So if that source IP came in already and one of the pool member was allocated, then next time for that same IP address, I'll be selecting or I'll be sending that that IP address of that client to the same pool member. Okay, and that's what we are going to prove now. You have an option to override, to define the override of the connection limit. And I hope that you remember that we did that, right? I told you that how to set the connection limit. And there are two different ways to set the connection limit. One, you can set it over the node. Second, you can set it over the pool member, right? You also have the timeout, which is one, right? By default, you can change that. Let's get this finished now, and let's get it applied to our existing virtual server. And which virtual server we are utilizing in actual? That's 4443, port 443. This is the actual virtual server that we are utilizing here. So I'll go to this virtual server now. So I'm on this virtual server now, and then go to resources. Under resources, you will have this persistence profile. So I'm going to call my test persistence profile now. I will update it now. So if I have CLI access to my box, right? You look at this list, LTM persistence LTM persist record. Is there any record in its persistence table? No. However, now I'll go back to my Windows 7 PC. Let me refresh it. So it was server 1. Let me refresh it again. It's a server 1. Let me refresh it again. It's server 1. Let me refresh it again. It's a server 1. Let me refresh it again. Every time if I go, I'll be having access to the server one only. You know why? Because now my big IP has one entry. If this user is coming in, I'm gonna send it to this pool member. Do you see that? That it has created a record in its persistence table, right, guys? However, if you use a different browser, right, you can think of using different browser. Still, there will not be any impact. You know why? Because the source IP address is going to be same. You can see that. Go to advanced. Yeah, this is what I'm coming now, right? So that is the biggest problem with this source NAT, right? Like if there is a NAT in place, right? Like in my example also, I have enabled NAT here. So let's say behind this router, you have like 500 users or maybe 200 users, and you have enabled persistence based on source IP. So every time all of the users will go using the same IP address, which is 11.1.1.1, because I have enabled PAT using interface IP. It will create a big problem for us, right? So in this scenario, we should not use it in this way. We know very well that we are using, I mean, it's a website, and for website, we use HTTP, and HTTP can use cookies. So better to use cookies. So I hope that you have understood that why don't we prefer to use the source IP address for web services. Okay? So now I'll go ahead and we'll use the cookies instead of using the source IP address. Yeah, in case if you are using a dedicated IPv6 address for each client, because in case if NAT is there, NAT is also there, right? Then again, it will be a problem, okay? Because NAT can also be configured for IPv6 as well. Now, if I talk about, once again, the persistence. So we have one another type of persistence as well, which is cookie, right? Which is cookie. And remember that in case of source IP address, my LTM created a persistence record over here, right? But in case of cookie, it doesn't have to maintain anything locally. What it does, let me explain you. In case of cookie, like if you are using cookies here, then how does it perform? Let me explain it to you. I'm sorry. Mm, mm, mm. Okay. Okay. So cookie insert mode is going to work in this way, boss. Like Big IT will never ever require to maintain that persistence record locally. You know how does it work? Let's say first it came from the client, like three-way handshake got completed. Now HTTP get message came in. Now virtual server is going to perform the the load balancing accordingly. So it will pick one of the pool member. So it will perform three-way handshake and then get will be given to that without any cookie. Now server is going to respond back without any cookie. Big IP will inspect that HTTP response and will insert a cookie on top of that. An HTTP reply, the response will be given back to the end user. Now end user will store that cookie in its local browser, right? So cookie will get stored in its browser itself. Now, after like maybe after a couple of seconds, client made another request. So first, three-way handshake got completed. Then HTTP request was sent with the same cookie that it received from the Big IP. Now Big IP knows that how to read that cookie because cookie is in the form of hash, right? So it's not like it will be in readable form. No, it's not going to be in readable form, right? So it will be in hash form. So my Big IP can read that cookie easily, and cookie itself contains the pool and pool member. Cookie itself contains what? The name of the pool and the pool member information. And based on that, it will send that request to the same server using cookie. So this time I'll be using cookie. So the advantage of the cookie would be that your Big IP doesn't need to store anything in local persistence table, right? And the problem that you had before due to NAT, dynamic NAT, I mean PAT, that problem will not occur now. Thereafter, let me go back and create a persistence profile using cookie to test cookie. That's it. And cookie will be my parent. The persistence type will be cookie. So parent profile is cookie profile. Thereafter, you can say cookie insert mode is by default. However, there are different modes like passive rewrite, but I'll be using cookie insert because this is something that we can prove over here, right? So insert mode is there, and then it's by default. The cookie will be, cookie will be valid as long as your session is up. However, you can also set cookie to be valid for couple of days, couple of hours, minutes, seconds in that way as well. So by default, it's a session cookie by default. You can also set some cookie name as well, like hey, I made it a cookie. I made it a testing like that. Okay. Finish that. Thereafter, let's go back to the virtual server. Thereafter, go to your virtual server that you have created for 443. Go to resources, change your persistence profile. So this time test cookie, update it. So it says that HTTP profile has to be there. Yeah, that I totally agree. Like as I said before, if you remember, when I was taking you through the introduction of the cookies, I told you that cookie profile has dependency over HTTP profile. So go to your properties of the virtual server, check if HTTP profile is there. So it's not there. So let's use the default pre-configured HTTP profile, update it. Thereafter, you go back to resources and then change your profile, persistence profile to your test cookie profile, like cookie profile. Update it, and this time it will accept that. So it has been proved that cookie persistence has dependency over HTTP profile. Okay. So we have enabled the HTTP profile onto the virtual server, and thereafter I was able to configure the cookie persistence profile. Now let's go back to the client machine here, right? So client machine, I'm testing it from the Google Chrome first. Refresh it. Maybe server 1, 2, 3, I don't know, but any one of the servers will be selected, and then Thereafter, so it's server 3. So now every time if I refresh my page, I'm going to have access from the server 3 only. But this time, if I try using different browser, it's not really, it's not really necessary that I'll be having access from the same server. So let me refresh it, because this browser was not having that cookie. And that's why you see it has access to this website from server 2. Every time you refresh this page, you will be accessing from server 2 only. Okay. And this time you do not have any local record here. You do not have that. You know why? It does not need to create a record for that cookie, because you are providing, Big IP is providing that cookie information to the end user machine itself. End user machine will store that cookie in its browser. And next time, whenever user machine will try to hit the same website, then it will include that cookie part of, it will include that cookie inside HTTP request. So once Big IP will receive the HTTP request, Big IP will have to inspect that HTTP request and it will find that cookie information, right? So that's how it will work. Yeah, I mean, it depends on the session, right? So if I clear this out, like I clear it, right? I closed 10. So session is cleared now, okay? So this time, we have cleared the cookies. Like cookies will not be in use. Okay, so I'm on the Google Chrome. Previously, I accessed website from server 3 only. So I'm gonna hit now once again, right? I'll hit it. So again, it came from the server 3, but this is not something that it was having the cookies here, right? It doesn't store that cookie for long. Once you close your browser, it should lose its cookie. Or maybe I have to clear that manually. Sometimes it also happens, right? Sometimes you have to clear your cookies manually. Yeah, it's server 1 this time. And now it will keep receiving this website from server 1 only. And even you can see that cookie over here, right? Let me do that. More tools, developer tools. And thereafter, let me refresh this page. I can show you that cookie over here, right? So go to network, open this, and then go to cookies, and then you can see that cookie. I provided this name, I made it testing. The cookie name was I made it a testing. So every time you are making a new request, it will go along with the cookies. However, I cannot show you because it's something that I have enabled the SSL. So it's all encrypted. Else I would have shown you in the Wireshark that, hey, this HTTP request is also containing the cookies information in it. Okay. I'll do it in next class, like in next week. Okay. Like I'll remove the SSL so that we can see what's happening, right? And thereafter we will test this again. But this is how you can utilize, you can leverage cookies, okay? But that's not the only one method that you could use the cookies. You have other options as well. Like as I told you before, you have multiple options over here, right? So, so you have cookie insert mode. So in this mode, what Big IP does, like Big IP will receive the response without cookie from the real server, will insert its own cookie and will give it to the client. This is how insert mode works. You have also rewrite. So in rewrite, server will have to provide the HTTP reply with blank cookie. That's mandatory. So you will have to ask the server team, hey guys, please enable cookies, and that must have a blank cookie. You get that? Passive mode is also there. So whatever server is attaching as a cookie, I'll let it go to the client. I will let it go to the client. You get my point? So server can also insert the cookie, and then Big IP can work in passive mode. So I have taught you that how to configure that. I mean, we have made all that configuration, so I do not really think that you should have any issues further on it. In case if you have any issues, that we can discuss them in next class. But today, like we performed, like we configured the persistence using, you know, by using the cookies and source address. In fact, sometimes you can also use the persistence using. Let me go back to the profiles and then persistence profile, and then let me create that. So even you can select here the type as a SSL. Here you go, SSL. So based on the SSL transaction number, like when you establish a SSL connection, it keeps a session, right? SSL session ID. So based on SSL session ID, also you can perform persistence. Like as long as your SSL connection is up, I should have the same server selected for the same client. Okay, because for each client, the SSL connection ID will be different whenever SSL connection is being established between the client machine and the big IP. So that is also possible. Like test SSL. No, nothing. I mean, it will not affect anything. If this is something like, hey, client came in, it will always have some SSL session ID, right? A unique SSL session ID, and I'll keep that SSL session ID in my persistence table. Okay, that's it. So let me go back to that virtual server and let me show you that how will it work. So it will not affect anything. I mean, of course, SSL is mandatory in that condition. You must enable SSL for clients, right? You must configure SSL profile. So SSL profile is already in place. What I will do, I'll enable the test SSL now and update it. If I go back, show LTM persistence, persist record, nothing is there. Thereafter, I'll go back to my client machine, and you know that it will always establish a secure connection. So it will always have a SSL session ID, So now server 3 was there, and every time it is going to be server 3. Every time. You know how? Let me show you the persistence record. So it must have the SSL session ID. This is what I told you. Because SSL connection will remain up between end user machine as long as the tab is open. Okay. So in fact, you can capture the data over here, and then you can see that how we are tracking this SSL session ID. Yeah, of course. Correct. Right. So if you go to like next tab and then you say 5.5.5, it will establish another session. So server 3 was there. Server 3. Let me see what happens next. Maybe it is using same session ID then. Let me see that. We can see in packet captures, right? Encrypted data. Okay. All right. I'll have to see the data, right? So let me search for TLS. Application data. TLS. Here you go. Application data. Okay, even it is not containing. But it looks like that every time it is using the same SSL session ID, and that's why it is using the same server. Right, but this is based on SSL session ID. So like there are various methods, right? You could persist. Sorry. Yeah, it's the same SSL session ID. You can see that. Every time it is same SSL session ID. Let me go back to the Windows 7 machine and refresh it, or maybe next. So 5.5.5. Nothing new, right? Same SSL session ID is there, and that's why it is using the same server over here. It's using the same SSL. I was thinking that the SSL that we can inspect here will have the connection ID, the session ID, but it was not having. So we cannot test that using Wireshark. But this is how, like you can perform the persistence. So we perform the persistence using source IP, using cookies, using SSL session ID, and also there is a universal profile that we could also leverage, right? So there are so many things that we could leverage, but the most important part that we have covered so far is the cookies and the source IP and the SSL session IP. That's the most important. However, in production, we also uses the universal profile. But to use the universal profile, it is mandatory to understand the I rules, because you cannot apply universal profiles without having knowledge to the I rules. Okay, guys. So yeah, that's it for today. And in next week also, I will continue with the persistence. So the target of the next week will be to complete with the persistence, and thereafter I'll start with the I rules. So next week we will cover all of the major topics from the LTM, and thereafter I'll start with like high availability, then IApps, iHealth, like that. Okay, TCP done. So in next 2 weekends, your content should get finished in next 2 weekends, like next 4 classes. All right, guys, then have a nice weekend, right? And the rest of the day. And we'll see you next week then. And bye for now.
Okay, sir. You too. Bye.